Hello, everybody. Welcome to CIT 141 Visual Concepts for Game Design. I am Professor Ulsh, and today we'll be going through kind of a basic rundown of starting your first project in Unreal Engine. We're not going to go too in depth into how Unreal Engine works from a workflow perspective, though I will run down kind of just your basics. We'll be getting more in depth in how to create scenes in Unreal and how to manipulate different components, different assets inside of a 3D level in future weeks. But for now, I just wanted to give you kind of a quick overview of how to work the different things in Unreal. So the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to open up your Epic Games launcher. If you have a shortcut for Unreal Engine on your desktop, you can also open that up. But this is the way that I do it, mostly because I have a bunch of different versions of Unreal installed. So once your Epic Games launcher is open, you'll click on your Unreal Engine tab here. It will open up the Unreal News page, and from there you'll go to Library, and here you'll see all of the different for me, there's a lot here, all the different projects and objects in your vault, different add-ons, plugins, content packs, things like that you can get from the marketplace, and your different engine versions at the top here. We're currently working in 5.4.4, so you should have that installed. If you are still having problems installing it, please let me know and I can walk you through that. But from here, we'll want to click the launch button under 5.4.4. And it'll take a couple of minutes and I'll probably cut the video here. But it will launch Unreal Engine. So once you have launched the Unreal editor, you'll see this pop up and there will be a bunch of stuff happening in the bottom left corner. The first time that you open up Unreal Engine, it needs to do a lot of initialization, compiling shaders for the scenes, and starting up all of the different processes inside of the engine. So it'll take a couple of minutes and I'll come back again once I'm fully loaded, because every time you open up Unreal, it will be a lot faster, but you'll still have to do things like compiling shaders and things like that. So be right back. All right, so once the browser is open, you'll see different tabs on the left-hand side, including your recent projects, which for me has some in here. You probably won't have any unless you have already started working on projects in Unreal. And then these different tabs for the different kinds of projects that you can do in Unreal. We will be focusing mostly on the Games tab. So if you click on that, you'll see the different templates that you can start with in Unreal Engine for your games. So if you wanted to start by making a first-person game, you can choose this template. Third person, top down for you RTS fans out there, vehicle games, virtual reality, AR, so on and so forth. If you don't want any of these template content in your project, you can click on the blank project and start with that. For this example, I'm going to start with a first person template. And then over here, you'll see the project defaults. These defaults are, for the most part, not something that you really need to mess with too much, and definitely not something that we're going to need to mess with in this class. However, from here, you can change whether you want the project to be a blueprint project, which is a visual scripting mode in Unreal, or C++, which will allow you to open up individual C++ files in Visual Studio and edit them directly. The one thing that you'll probably want to keep in most projects as you're starting out is the starter content. This will include a bunch of different meshes, levels, blueprints, and things that you can use to start your project, including your basic shapes and materials for those shapes to build your scenes. So I'm not going to mess with any of these, and I'm going to click this create button. Oh, I should also mention that you can change the name of your project here. So if we wanted to change this to CIT 141 example, and then we click create to create the project. Okay, now that the project is open, uh, you'll see a screen like this. We'll talk a bit about what all these different things mean, but first, let's talk about the viewport. So, this content browser, you may have this as a separate window. You may have it down here docked into your lower third. Either way, we can ignore this for right now, but because I don't want my content browser floating in the middle of the screen, I will drag it and dock it onto my lower third. All right, so inside of the space, you can see here, this is the default level that you'll get when you open up the first person template. Um, and this is just kind of to get you started. There are components in here so you can play the game and interact with things to get like basic character movement and stuff like that. We're not going to go too deep into that, but if you wanted to play this, you can click this green play button and it will allow you to play the game from first person perspective. First, let's talk about movement inside of the engine. First thing you'll want to do is if you want to rotate your camera, you hold right click and you can drag and it will rotate your camera in any direction that you want. If you want to move the camera in any way, you hold right click and then you move it just like you would a computer game with WASD movement. So W moves forward, A moves to the left, D moves to the right, S moves back. You can also hit Q to move down and E to move up. And you can combine that in any way to move yourself around the space. Inside of the scene, you'll see a bunch of different objects. This is more what we're going to focus on. If you want to manipulate objects inside of a level, you can click on them. Click on them in the scene like this, or using the outliner, you can click on different objects and it'll select them. So if I wanted to edit, say, this cube here, when you click on it, you'll see a widget that uses the same transform tools as you would see in Maya. So if you hit W, you can move the object with translation. If you hit E, you can rotate the object any way you want. If you hit R, you can scale the object, make it bigger or smaller. And then if you hit W, you can go back to translation. Next, if you are looking at a specific object and you want to get additional information on that object, if you look at the details panel down here, you might have it when you first open up under the world settings tab. We don't have to worry about this right now. I'll get more in depth into it later. But this is where you set all of your different things, like the game mode that you're running, overall lighting details and physics and stuff like that. But we don't have to worry about this right now. So we're going to click on the details tab. And then here you'll see the object I've clicked on is this SM underscore chamfer cube 10. And that is what's in the details panel. That's what I'm looking at. And now we can look at all the different things that affect this specific object. So transform, you can use your transform tools inside of here or in the world like I was showing. Anything that you manipulate in here will manipulate the object in real time. If you wanted to scale everything at once, you can click this lock button and then you can drag or type in a number in one of these boxes and it'll scale everything uniformly. Below that, we have, so for most objects in the world that we're going to be dealing with, they're going to be static meshes or skeletal meshes. Static meshes are things that do not animate. They are just still in the world. They could have physics applied to them and stuff that will make them move, but they are not rigged to animate. Skeletal meshes are rigged to animate. They have a skeleton that will allow them to move in real time. It's your characters and cars and things like that inside of a video game. So because this is a static mesh, it'll tell you it's a static mesh and it'll tell you which static mesh it's using. All of these cubes use the same base static mesh. If you wanted to change this static mesh, If you click on this drop down, and now it's a chair, or maybe I want it to be a couch, and it'll apply all of the transformation settings to that base static mesh. So if I click on these back arrows here to reset the static mesh to its base stats, or its base values, and then move it into the space, you can see that's how it looks normally. Underneath that is materials. Materials are what give the meshes their color, patterns, and all the other components that make them look the way they do. So for, say, this cube here, it has one material. It's called mi_solid_blue. If I wanted to change that, I can click on this drop down and change it to, let's go with orange metal. There you go. Now it's a completely different look than the other ones. When we get into doing texturing and things inside of Substance Painter, we'll get more in depth in how these will translate to Unreal Engine. But this is how you can manipulate that in real time in your level. Below that is a lot of stuff that has to do with gameplay. So your physics, collision, lighting, which will be something that we mess with further on in the course. And this is how lighting affects the object, and the object affects lighting. So will it cast a shadow? Does it have complex reflections and things like that? Rendering. This is very basically whether or not you can see it in the game. So if you uncheck visible, it disappears. If you check actor hidden in game, it will disappear when you play the game, and anything that affects it in the game world won't affect it. You see the shadow went away. It's because lighting is no longer affecting it. And then below that is a lot of things that we will not be getting into, but you can explore if you'd like. A lot of different components that you can edit inside of a single asset in Unreal. Okay, so now that we've talked a bit about how to manipulate a level inside of your viewport and using your outliner and your details panels, let's talk about the content browser. So this is all of the content that you'll see and you'll be able to use to create your game. This includes all of your scripting, all of your objects, your meshes, materials, textures, and UI elements and things like that. For the purposes of this class, we will be focusing mostly on those visual elements. So we've opened up a template project. So we'll have a few folders here already, including the starter content. We won't have to worry about most of these, but let's go into starter content by double clicking the folder. And then here inside of this, we have a bunch of different folders. Let's double click into props. Inside of props, we'll find all these different props that Unreal has started us out with that we can build a scene. Very much like this couch that we were manipulating before. If I wanted to add more props to this scene, I can click on one and drag it right into the scene. From there, we can kind of build a scene however we like. I don't really have there's not really a ceiling for this lamp, but say that's there. And now we've created a little scene. That's really all it takes once your objects are actually in your project. And we'll be getting more into how to do that later on. But if you wanted to mess with these different starter content objects and see what you can build with the starter level, go for it. If we go back into the starter content and click on maps, these levels, which are highlighted with orange on their object in the folders, are your different. This is how you would change your scenes. So we're in the starter map right now, I think. Oh, we're in first person map. Sorry, we're in first person map right now. Let's go and let's open into starter map. I'm not going to worry about saving any of this stuff because it won't matter. Now we're inside the starter map, which is, look at this, it's completely different. Has a bunch of different objects, and none of it has materials or anything, mostly because it's still preparing shaders. You can see in the bottom right. But once all this stuff loads, this is kind of just to give you an idea of what these different materials look like on objects, what things look like in what light, as well as things like your visual effects and other lighting components. It's just kind of like a display. But as you notice, when I change between levels, it completely changed the map. If I were to want to create a new level, I can do that by right-clicking in the content browser and clicking level. And now I have a new level. Now I'll open up this level and show you what you get when you open a completely new level. Hold on a second. I'm going too fast. Save. Didn't like that it wasn't saved. All right, so if I wanted to open up this level, as you can see, there is nothing in here. I'm dragging my camera around and I see nothing. There's nothing in the outliner, nothing in the details page panel. If we go to the world settings tab, there's nothing in our game mode, none of it. This is what happens when you create a completely new level. And from here in the future, I'll explain how to build a level from this base thing. But for now, if you want to just, mess around with just the basics inside of the default maps, that's a great idea. You can also look, if you want to, into the blueprints and stuff. This is when you get into scripting, and it's not something that I'm really going to cover in this course. But that should do it. That is about everything that I wanted to discuss with Unreal Engine. I encourage you all to take a look at the engine, mess around with things, and just get familiar with it. When we get into talking about putting in the components that we've made in Maya into Unreal Engine, manipulating them and creating scenes, I will go far more in depth in how Unreal Engine works. But just get familiar with it so that you'll be ready to go when that time comes. Thank you, everybody, and I will see you guys next time.